Without further ado, I would like to invite distinguished Professor Dr. Rajah together with His Excellency to be on stage. Professor Rajah will be moderating this session. Prof, the floor is yours.
Excellency José PARDO CUERDO, Ambassador of Malaysia and Brunei, Darussalam. Before I begin, I'd just like to mention that some interesting developments are taking place. But before that, let me just welcome all of you here. Professor Roy Rogers, Deputy Director of AEI, Dr. Norliana Kamarudin, also Deputy Director of AEI, Professor Anthony Milner, who's been here longer than I've ever been, not just in the whole region, but in AEI itself, Professor Azira Hashim, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first state that the Foreign Minister liked very much the idea they brought up, and it started with His Excellency Jose Luis Pardo. He actually talked about what he wanted to speak about. And I actually all the time thought that was necessary. We're going to turn this into a platform where people can see as a stimulating channel for discussing ideas, contesting ideas, and to learn from them. He was mentioning that he was very keen to speak on his role or Spain's position in the EU, strengths and shortcomings, which I thought was really important because not everything is rosy, not everything is bad. But having said that, he was going to speak from the tacit knowledge he carries on this topic. And I'm not sure if he's going to touch on the Ukraine-Russian war, which obviously has involved Europe very much. Now, at least I feel, or I'm expecting, he will give his personal view on this account. Let me try to brag a little, which I often do. Normally, people who know little would like to say that they know something. So I must say that I know little. His Excellency, it's the fourth largest country in Europe. It's got a population that's sixth in Europe. Its GDP is 1.3 billion, 2022, trillion, sorry. Fourth in Europe. But its per capita income, as with all these large countries, they don't tend to have high per capita incomes. One of the smallest countries there, which is bordered between Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands, Luxembourg has got the highest per capita income. Then, of course, at some point, Philip II married Queen Mary from Ireland. Ireland has the second highest. But interestingly, and Ireland too doesn't have a big population. Denmark, the Netherlands, and Austria, they follow that. So it's not one with a high per capita income, so is the case with the US. And even Japan, Singapore has overtaken Japan when it comes to per capita income. But we all know, at least myself, as a student doing history until Form 3, I got to know about King Philip II's marriage to Mary from Ireland. I initially thought that Ireland somehow would be part of Spain, but it never happened. It was the British that colonized Ireland, which celebrated last year its 100th year independence from the British. But of course, Spain was famous for the conquest. I shall not open up wounds and so on in whatever Columbus did, for example. And of course, the Napoleonic Wars. For example, the Trafalgar, the southwest of Spain, where Horatio Nelson defeated Napoleon. And of course, subsequent Napoleon Wars that continued around there. Everybody knows, I believe, the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 that established British supremacy, naval supremacy at least. Then here's Spain joined the European Union on the 1st of January 1986, I think, along with Portugal. It's, I think, almost 38 years since they joined. It's long enough experience being in the EU. And of course, there's also lots of curiosity on these issues, and I'm sure His Excellency will bring these matters up. He'll be speaking on the complex institutional framework of the EU and policy-making processes. In doing so, His Excellency shall also share the strengths and shortcomings of being in the EU from his perspective. It could also be from Spain's national perspective. About the speaker, His Excellency José Luis Pardo Cuerdo. He's an experienced diplomat from the legal background with stints in Tripoli, Libya, Amman, of course, close to where a major war was taking place, Berlin and Niger. Interesting, because we had a coup in Niger not that long ago. He is an accomplished diplomat who has deservingly won several awards in his distinguished career. He's Spain's current ambassador to Malaysia and Brunei. With that, let's welcome His Excellency José to give you a speech to Pardo Cuerdo, please. Thank you.
Dato, dear friends, Ray, all the friends of the European Union ASEAN Institute, University Malaya, dear colleagues, dear friends, dear ambassadors, dear friends, all of you, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much first for the invitation to have me here. And thank you very much for all of you to come to hear what I have to say to you. The title of the lecture is Understand the European Union, a vision from a member state. Is that what we offer and what you will get? No more than that, no less than that. It's not, my words not about how the European Union in general. There are much better persons to explain that. We have here an embassy of the European Union that can explain that. And because we will have no time to explain in 45 minutes the whole complexity of the European Union. My approach will be a very practical approach. It is sent for people who are interested in the European Union and understanding what is the European Union. I will do it from the vision of a member state. And what does it mean to be member state of the European Union? A very practical approach. I have passed half of my diplomatic career working in the European Union issues from Madrid, not from Brussels, but from Madrid. I don't continue to the European capital. So it's based, the comments I made, it's based on practical terms. For the rest, for the theory, there are a lot of books that you can access. There are a wonderful European Union web page of all the institutions, from the Commission, from the Council, from the Parliament, as a wonderful explained for the Court of Justice. So what I want to do to transfer to you is a very practical, I repeat, this practical approach. And let's begin just bringing you that you never than you just approach the European Union, don't forget two essential things. Without them, you will not understand correctly what the European Union is. First is that the first objective of the European Union, and remain now the core still of our European Union, are the four freedoms. Freedoms of movement of persons, of goods, of capitals, and of services. It is because we have this free movement inside that we have Schengen. It is that we have a common market, that we have custom union. It is that for that we have many things, many that, for instance, the trade policy is an inclusive policy of competence of the European Union. So do not forget that is the main objective of the European Union and remains is the main objective of the European Union. And the second is that the uniqueness of the European Union, what differentiates it from other regional procedures of integration, ASEAN, Mercosur, African Union, ECOWAS, there are so many in the world, and so powerful and so effective. We differentiate it because in the European Union, it is not only cooperation, collaboration, put in common financing, put in common political wills, that it is a transfer of sovereignty. That is essential to understand. If you not take that into account, you will not understand correctly the European Union. The member states voluntarily transfer, lose sovereignty and pass it collectively to the European Union in exchange of enjoying the benefits, many benefits of integration. Because of that, because we transfer sovereignty, you can understand the highly complicated policy making and decision process within the European Union, the sophisticated check and balances between institutions, the lawmaking processes, the different types of majorities within the Council, simple majority, qualified majority, unanimity, and on top of that, the continuous bargaining process that takes place on a daily basis in Brussels. So after these small introductions, if we just remind you of the four freedoms and the transfer of sovereignty, I will concentrate my speech in just explaining to you in very practical terms, I repeat, what does mean for a European member state to belong to the European Union. First, in terms of loss of sovereignty or transfer of sovereignty, we'll see. Partially, totally, we'll see now. Second, the effort that means for a member state to continue to follow up the bargaining process in Brussels, because in Brussels we take decisions on a daily basis, and decisions that have direct, immediate effect, not only for states but for citizens, for companies, so that just forced member states to have an extraordinary burden to follow that and to effectively defend national interests in the general bargaining in Brussels. And the third, explain how on the ground our ownership belonging to the European Union affects to the powers, to the three typical powers of an state: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Let's begin with the first point, losing sovereignty, or transferring sovereignty. We must take into account the division of competences within the European Union and member states. There are three kinds of competences that the European Union have: exclusive competences, shared competences with member states, and possibilities of surrogate measures. Exclusive competences, and Article 3 in the treaty. They are, for instance, the customs union, the competition rules, the trade policy, the monetary policy for the countries that have the euro as currency, on the fisheries conservation. That is exclusive competence. But look at the shared competencies, that is shared the European Union and member states. There are many: industry, agriculture, health, justice and foreign affairs, border, transport, energy, health, research and development, effort cooperation. So that is important to know who does who, and after we'll see what is the impact of this classification of competencies to member states. In the exclusive competence of the European Union is when the member states lose more sovereignty, but not only in the share too. We'll see now. And I will put you on examples of 5 elements in which it is evident this transfer of sovereignty from member states to the European Union. Let's begin. The first one, monetary policy. The euro. On 1st January 1999, we decided to create the euro, and in 2002, notes and coins of euro were in circulation. We decided to kill our own currencies that we already know for something that Europe didn't know. And we are con, as you hear with the ringgits, it was tough. It was a hard decision for member states and for citizens. In your coins and your notes, they are spent politicians, kings, writers, the glories of your country, and you are very close to your own currency, to franc, to lira, to peseta, it was very tough decision, but we did it because we think that it was good for the European integration. And now it's a success. 20 of the 27 European member states have the euro as the currency. It was why we made the euro, because it was necessary for the economic and monetary union, because if not having a single currency will not be many things. The benefits is many stronger. Euro is a strong, a hard international currency. Just saving of exchange rates, that are incoherent. If you change from peseta to franc, from franc to lira, a loss of money in an internal market. Avoid competitive devaluations among countries. Better control monetary mass, that is in circulation, important for fighting expenditure, state expenditure deficits, but to fight inflation. And not to mention the positive impact as far as European image is concerned for citizens, that we have an euro, I mean, what is a common currency. But they have strong impacts in the sovereignty of the states, member states. First, we have no more monetary policy. We have no more monetary policy. We cannot devaluate, you cannot revaluate. Single is the European Central Bank. I can, the Bank of Spain, the Bank of France, the Bank of Germany cannot. Second, we have the European Central Bank, that is the only competitor for fighting against corruption, deciding the interest rates, essential in an economy, and supervision of the banks, the European Banking Union, that we are just improving on that, the supervision of European banks. So that means that before in our countries, the national bank was the national bank. The Bank of Spain, you see in all our cities, the national bank are in the very center of the capital city. And in the provinces, the buildings are in the very center of each of the provinces. Well, they are now with not so many, and they have still things, but not so many competencies, because we have no longer monetary policy. We have transferred to Brussels commonly. The European Union has, as far as the member states that belongs to the Euro, had a special coordination committees, the Euro Group, it's called the Euro Group, and they are the Ministry of Finance that have the countries that have the Euro currency, and the Euro Summit that is made twice a year, yes, beyond the European summits, the normal summits. Second domain, we have lost sovereignty, fiscal policy. The European Monetary Union, the Union Internal Market do not work without common economic rules, control on healthy public accountability, sustainable public finances, and good control of inflation. And for doing that, the European have many, but we have two main tools. First, the so-called, you have heard about it, because it's a lot of debate on that, the growth and the sustainability and growth pact, and second, the so-called European semester. It's very technical, but we'll try only just to explain to you afterwards if there are questions, and to explain more. The stability and growth pact, what does it mean? It obliges the member states to have the public accountants with below 3% as far as deficit is concerned, and below 60% of public debt. It is so important that now, at the revision of the treaties, these obligations are in the treaties itself. That's the primary law of the European Union. They are in the treaties now, Article 126. They are not in intergovernmental, arrangement, but in the treaty. It is true that it's very developed and divided afterwards, why 3%, why 60% anyway. And now, just to make you an example, 10 member states up to 27 do not comply with 3%, and 13 of the 27 do not comply with the 60% amount. Among them, 3 of the 4 biggest countries of the European Union on top of others. That is a challenge. And this pact is not only, it's binding. And we have tools to make it binding to a member state. We have preventive arms on that. An example, the fiscal policy guidelines, the middle-term budgetary objectives, the spending benchmark that oblige to the states not to increase expenditure below the normal or the expected growth of this year in the budget. And we have the preventive side, but mainly the punish at the correction side, the so-called terrible and excessive deficit procedure. That this is the weapon of the weapons. In the Union, when a member state continue not to maintain these limits and continue even if a process just to, guidelines and recommendations to come to the disciplines or whatever. So the Commission can begin this process. It's long, it's true, it's long. The Council just takes a place there. It's long, but it can finish in extraordinary tough measures, extraordinary financial sanctions, not receiving for the member state EU transfers, for instance, in the agricultural policy, in the regional policy, in the environmental policy, and even if the things continue, even they can lose their right to vote in the Council. So I mean, it's not only blah blah blah. No. It's extremely tough for member states. And the second is the European semester. In the crisis, in the deep economic crisis in 2008, we decided collectively to make reforms, and we tried to feed the so-called six-pack regulations that reinforce the growth and stability pact. And we created the semester, European semester. What does mean the European semester? It's a semester because it's a semester. It begins in April, it's in November each year. What does it mean? Is the control on the budgets, on the national budgets of the member states. If there is an element of sovereignty of countries, is the general budget. To present the budget, I decide. In the budget, I do decide in which, how I collect taxes and in which I spend. So, now, with this European semester, I will not explain because it's very detailed, afterwards you want, but believe me, it's a very long process to control before that it is finished in November, because of 14 October, all the member states must submit to all of us their projects of budget for this year, to see if they comply with a lot of guidelines, conversion programs, reform programs, a lot of that since April to October are checked by everybody. So that means that you cannot spend the money whatever you want. No. And you cannot spend money for whatever source you want. No. You must apply to, because the stability of public accountability, because not engaging in deficits, etc., as we are all together, that affects the global economic and monetary union. We have seen it in the economic crisis, that we have a deep one, 2007, and so it's a strict, very restrict to member states. This and for the financing ministers, imagine they have not enough with doing the budget, and they must present all these things continuously, the convergence plan, the reforms, the national plan, etc., to get the okay of the Commission that in November they publish recommendations for the countries. And in civil society, everybody in our countries look for the Commission's recommendations. And that pays a price for the governments in each country. The Commission said that, but the governments proposed that. And they are published. So it increased to the accountability of citizens to the budgets presented by their own countries. So it's the only thing that perhaps they have more, we have more margin of maneuver, has not been harmonized, and it is a thing that we should go to the harmonization, but it has an impact that in a European monetary union is taxes. With the exception of the VAT, the value-added tax, that is harmonized, the rest of the taxes are not harmonized in the European Union. For instance, corporative tax. Corporate tax is not harmonized, as it's an important element to competitiveness of some. We have not attained this, but we will go. There is two reasons, and there is much debate on and now we are thinking about how we flexibilize the conditions of the growth and the stability pact. 3%, 6%. Why? These kind of things is highly debatable, in our countries. Okay, the third, we have seen the monetary policy, the fiscal policy. Another element or domain in which member states are capped, let's to say, by the European Union, to belonging to the European Union. The trade policy. The European Union is not only a free trade area, it's a custom union. That means that we have not custom rights among us inside, and we have common tariffs for the rest of the world. So it is reasonable that we transfer these competencies to the European Union. And as I said to you, the trade policy is exclusive policy of the European Union. That means that it's the European Union who negotiates trade agreement. I cannot sign Spain, Malaysia, or Belgium, Malaysia free trade agreement. No, it's not possible because we have no competences to do that. The exclusive competence is the European Union, and so we can only sign European Union, Malaysia free trade agreement, for instance. No? So not only negotiate, decide to the exceptions to that, the so-called SPD. SPD is the reduce of tariffs for market access to countries of development or less developed countries. So it is decided, but I cannot say, oh, this country is my friend, so I give you no. I mean, we do commonly. I mean, you can do that. You cannot progress to no, okay, you can enter these goods because you are a friend country woman. No, you cannot. And the protection of investment, the same. It has come after the Treaty of Lisbon, a competence for the European Union. I can continue having my bilateral protection of investment treaty, but I cannot negotiate a new one. You want a new one? Now is competence of the European Union to that. What the benefits is? The benefits are obvious too. I mean, as a global economic player, the European Union is a market of 450 million people. So we have income, so we have more power when negotiating with trade partners because of market access to Europe. I mean, a good market with high prices, and we can buy everything that you made. And we are open. I mean, our economies are open. As a matter of fact, 60%, almost a bit more than 60% of our trade internal is made between us, among us. I mean, that's the robust of the internal market in the European Union. But we are absolutely open to the world. So, and second, having that common trade policy, we can influence in the world in making trade more human rights or environmental things friendly, to promote, for instance, decent work, to promote or to fight against labor, children work, to foster environmental respect, etc., worldwide. But the impact on member states is very high. It's very high. First, as I said to you, we cannot negotiate trade agreements. It is true that, and I will say that in a practical terms, when the Commission proposed to negotiate something, well, we member states said, well, this is a pure trade agreement, or it includes other things that are not exclusive competencies, that are shared competencies. So in this case, the Council member state will say, no, sorry, this is a mixed agreement. It's not only economic agreement, so a trade agreement, and so, okay, we give you the guidelines to negotiate to the Commission. The Commission wants the broader guideline possible in order to have more freedom to negotiate. Member states, on the contrary, more narrow in order to control more the Commission. What does he negotiate in our behalf? Afterwards, there's committees for the member states to follow up the negotiations of the Council, how they go, and at the end of the day, we must accept the final negotiations. It depends, unanimity or qualified majority, depending on the question of that includes the treaty. And at the end of the day, of course, our parliaments must ratify the agreement. And second, what another influence to member states, we do not cash the custom duties. The custom duties is for the European Union. I mean, the European Union has three ways of it is called own resources. What is the money of the European Union? How comes the money of the European Union? Because at the end of the day, it's a sum of 27 states. So there are three. The first, the lion's share of the money of the European Union comes from a percentage of GDP of member states. According to the GDP, well, each country pays. That's more than 70% of the budget of the European Union. But afterwards, there is two contributions for the value-added tax, that is so-called European tax, and third, the custom duties. So the custom duties, we transfer member states to the European Union. In order to, because we all know, in order to push member states to be more efficient in collecting taxes, the European Union gives to us 25% of the recollection of the customs for paying the procedural administrative costs and to foster, to be effective in collecting. For fiscal policy, monetary policy, we have trade policy. The fourth one is border control. Come back to the freedoms of movement. One of the pillars of the European Union is the freedom of movement of persons. So, in order to allow, because there are no borders, there are no internal borders, you have into the European Union and you can pass from France to Spain, from Belgium to Netherlands, from Germany to Luxembourg. There is no custom, there is no border. You notice that you are entering because they are opposed in the border, the European Union flag, and the country you are entering. Romania, Belgium, Spain, but there are not internal borders. So, in order to do that, we need to reinforce the external borders. When you come, we reinforce the external borders. The terrestrial external borders and international airports that, by definition, are external borders. So this, and that you can freely move afterwards, entering that. What is the reason? In order to safeguard the internal free circulation, we must fight international crime, irregular entries, security concerns. So that's why we must reinforce our external borders. It is not that you have European fortress. No, it's not European fortress. It's the logic. It's the logic. If you can freely travel in this space, you must reinforce the external borders. This freedom of internal movement applies not only to European Union nationals. It applies to European Union nationals, of course, but too for residents, permanent residents in the European Union that can the same rights. Citizens, for instance, me as an Spaniard in Belgium, the principle is national treatment. I have the same rights and I pay the same rights that it will be in Spain, for instance. With very small access to, sometimes, and not always, access to public function, for instance, to administration, or to be a diplomat, for instance. You must be Belgian, but in general, it is national treatment with the same rights and the same obligations. The same happens to permanent residents in the European Union. They can travel without any. They can settle, and they can come. Family reunification. They can take the families abroad into the European Union. In this question of the rights of citizens and rights of EU nationals and not EU nationals within the European Union Court has been historically a push forward, a method of pushing member states that were sometimes reluctant to apply European legislation, and there are hundreds and thousands, I would say, of cases before the European Court of Justice that has pushed so much this not only for residents and citizens, but also for migrants. The most visible example of this freedom of movement is Schengen. You have obviously heard about Schengen system. It's the world's largest visa-free area. 27 countries belong to that. Almost all the EU member states with the exception of 3 or 4, sorry, and all the countries of the European Economic Space, as you see, Iceland, Switzerland, Norway, and Liechtenstein. The Schengen system applies only to short-term visas. That is to say, for visas that are 90 days per semester. That is, that we have harmonized, is the majority of the visas, I mean. So long-term visas, visas for working, visas for study, visas for research remain national. We have harmonized some of them too. For instance, we have harmonized the so-called blue card for attracting talent or for the rest of the world to the European Union, and to maintain normal and more or less level rules in non-member countries in order not to compete among ourselves and to have the same conditions to everybody who wants to come. But Schengen, I repeat, is for short terms. And I repeat, 60 days per semester. That means 6 months per year. But it is called by semester. So, and of course, we have so many to support us, so many coordination. You can imagine, so many coordination by the 27. We have the Schengen information system, the PIS, the visa computer system, the EEA, the ETIAS, etc. So many programs of connecting our administrations, our ministers of interior, in order to assure that the Schengen works. The benefits of that are obvious, but the restrictions too. Because, well, the control of borders, you are limited in the control of borders. And the control of borders is a tremendous and historical sovereignty right of member states. So the countries have, as far as Schengen is concerned, the possibility of derogate the free movement of Schengen, but for very limited time, as last resort, and for very specific reasons. For instance, we organize a football cup, and we organize a summit. Question of security, I install for a few period of time control to assure security in the event that there is not a terrorist attack. I don't know, this kind of security. And secondly, you can do it too. You can do it in case of security concerns, health concerns, a pandemic, for instance, health concerns and security concerns. In that case, you can ask to make an exception for 6 months. They are renewable for 6 months. Another element that we can discuss afterwards of the how to say, challenges of the Schengen space is migration, irregular migration, fight against irregular migration and refugees things. Afterwards on that, this is a fact of reason why some member states has applied these exceptions for the Schengen, temporary exception of the Schengen. It is. I will only give some details, some data in order to understand. Which is the challenge we have. Only this year, so far, in the European Union have been 230,000 irregular entries, and there have been 827,000 refugee applications so far until now, October. As far as Ukraine is concerned, 4.2 million of Ukrainians just leave because of the war on other members of the European Union. The five and last on this first chapter of my speech aspect of normal and traditional sovereignty of states that it is touched and affected directly by the belonging to the European Union is foreign policy. Of course, foreign policy remains in a very long degree still a competence of member states, but there are a lot of new developments that affect that directly, mainly, specifically after the Treaty of Lisbon. First, as far as representation of the European Union is concerned. The representation of the European Union is concerned belongs to the Commission, the President of the Commission, and the President of the European Council. It doesn't belong to the President of the Council. We'll speak afterwards what is the European Council and the Council of the European Union, because it's different institution. We'll speak afterwards. So, for instance, we, Spain, we have now, as it has been, this semester we have the presidency of the Council of the European Union. Belgium will follow, and Hungary will follow to Belgium. It's 6 months. We do not represent the European Union abroad. It is the delegation of the European Union, for instance, who represents the European Union. It's not us. There is an element, an important element. To negotiate and conclude agreements, international agreements, we have talked about the trade agreement, but there are many other sorts of agreements and international agreements. So, it depends if it's on the competence bank. If it's an exclusive competence, if it's the European Union, it's share completely. Okay, we will see how how to do it. It is true that in the representation of the European Union there is some exceptions in multilateral organizations in which they do not recognize the juridical personality of the European Union. And in this case, is the president, in this case, yes, is the president of the council who represents the European Union, but it is very exceptional. The figure of the High Representative Vice President for the foreign policy, actually is this Borrell is, well, the European Minister of Foreign Affairs. And he heads the Council of European Foreign Affairs. And so is our minister, so to say, of all ministers of European. That is supported by the European External Service, that is the diplomatic corps, let's to say, to simplify things, of the European Union. And that has influenced, has affected tremendously member states. I mean, for good, but tremendously, financial capabilities. We cannot compare the capabilities we have each of us as foreign policy and the European Union. The budget of the European Union, the actual budget 2021-2027 is 2 trillion euros, that is to say 10 trillion ringgits. Well, of that is for all the things we do, and for foreign policy we have 111 billion euros, so to say 555 billion ringgits. We cannot compare member states with these sums. I mean, we can do a lot of more things with this money than with our. So we coordinate in order to be efficient in this sense. So the benefits of these limitations to state sovereignty in foreign policy are evident too. We are stronger. We are stronger together, and we are more visible together. Okay, I finished with that, the first block of my lecture, and I passed to the second one, that it was, if you remember, how in which sense the belonging to the European Union affects the administration of states. As you have seen it, I have explained to you, the European Union continuously, on a daily basis, makes decisions who has direct effect in everybody, not only the states, in citizens, in companies. So, how do member states assure, in this complicated process of decision making, a political process, how do you assure that your interest, mainly when you have red lines, and you have really a lot of interest, how do you defend it? How do you follow up? I will put you only 3 examples of the big challenge that represents to all of us. The European Union has 60,000 civil servants on all the institutions. There are, as you know, 7 institutions. There is the European Central Bank, there is the European Court of Justice, there are European Accountability Justice, and the 4th one are the more important because there is the legislative authority, let's to say, the Commission. The Commission is the government, let's to say, of the European Union. He is the guardian of the treaties and has an essential role. Is the only one who can propose legislation. He has the monopoly of presenting legislation. I cannot, Spain cannot. It's only the Commission who can propose a draft of legislation, whatever it is, or develop the competences. This is a real tremendous tool. Afterwards, the Council, we are member states. The Council of the European Union, we are member states that, that we as co-decide. The European Council is another institution. It is the president of the European Council is now Michel, former Prime Minister of Belgium, and it's composed of head of state, of government, or member states. For instance, what we had in Granada last week was a European Council. They made 4 meetings per year. 4 meetings per year, and well, we organize in our normally you do one in Brussels and another one in one capital of the country that have the presidency of the council. So, European Council is different. So, European Council is different from the Council of the European Union and absolutely different from the Council of Europe. That is another international organization. In order for you to clarify, and the Parliament. So, just to make you an example of the work. the repairs, the permanent representations of each of our countries in Brussels are by far the biggest embassies we have in the world. You have hundreds of civil servants working there, of all the ministries, because you must follow each day, and you must take into account mainly in the institution, and all these institutions that I told you before, the institution you normally and naturally belong, that is the council. Well, the council has 10 different formations that meet, some of them monthly, some of them in 2 months. To follow up, there are two committees, Coreper 1 and Coreper 2. That is Permanent Representatives Committee 1, Permanent Representatives Committee 2. The Permanent Representative Committee 2 is the most important because they prepare the formation of 4 councils that are the essential ones: the ECOFIN, Finance, the Foreign Affairs Council, Foreign Policy, the Justice and Home Affairs, Borders, and the General Affairs Councils, Institutions, Budget, Enlargement, etc. These 4 are prepared by Coreper 2, that it is made by repairs, that is ambassadors of the European Union. Coreper 2 prepare the 6 remaining formations of the Council. To this Coreper, on top, the work is prepared by 150 preparatory bodies, committees, working parties, high-level working groups, 150, that you must be there. You must be there. And so, for instance, an example, in the presidencies, we have only in our, the country has the presidency, has always 1 or 2 persons, almost 2 persons, that is only devoted to find a room for the meetings. To find a room for the meeting that there is, either in Justus Lipsius building, either in Europa building, to find, to assure that for the meeting there is a room, this day, at this time, etc. But not only member state must take care of the council, too on the parliament. Why? Because the normal legislative, before the parliament has a lower degree, but now the normal legislative procedure implies the parliament. The commission puts the proposal, the council see the proposal, agree, not agree, change, etc., the position of the council, and that we go to the parliament. And we become with this called a trilogue, that is Commission, Council, Parliament. So you must follow to the Parliament because perhaps you have lost the battle in the Council, but you can't regain it in the Parliament if you touch the parliamentary group that is more in favor of your positions, because it's called legislative now the Parliament. So more power, more work. And finally, majorities and minorities. The rule of vote in the council. If it's unanimity, you relax. Okay, unanimity, I have always the possibility of saying yes or no. You are not convinced. Yes, but the majority of votes is qualified majorities now, after the revision of Trito. What does it mean? That qualified majority. So you can be in minority, you can be in the majority. If you don't like the proposal, you must create a so-called blockade minority. So it is a lot of negotiation there. And so for qualified majority in the council, the number of votes is distributed according to the population. And so in order to pass a proposal that needs qualified majority, you need 55% of the member states plus 62% of the population of the European Union. If the proposal is made at the Commission. If the proposal is not made by the Commission, because it's not a legislative proposal, this threshold increase to having 62 of member states and 75% of population. So complicated, and so imagine the burden for member states to be, with some guarantees to defend your national interests. And the final chapter that we wanted to explain to you, that I will very quick on that, is the consequences of belonging to the European Union in the powers on the ground, of the 3 powers on the ground of the state. To the executive, we have already seen the limitations, the EU system to national governments. It is true that depending on the kind, as we have said, of EU competencies, they are exclusive, they are shared competencies, that even in exclusive competencies, the states retain some escape ways to retain some of the sovereignty. For instance, unanimity in some cases, in other cases, ratification of the treaty that has been negotiated by the Commission, etc., etc. But still, they are serious, as we have seen, they are serious constraints to the freedom or liberty of choices of the executive. Not only the things that we have seen, but to the principles. The European Union is mainly a community of values, of democracy, human rights, a state of law, division of powers, open society, and that are limits for the countries that belong to the European Union, that cannot derive from the respect, the full compliant respect on these principles. If there would be somebody that could have the idea of just contravening these principles, the European Union has tools, lengthy, perhaps sometimes it is true, one of the shortcomings of that they have tools to limit, this diversion for eventual political decisions for executive. Second, to the legislative. The legislative is, in our countries, the example of sovereignty, of our national sovereignty, of people's sovereignty. You elect your representatives in their parliaments. The parliaments will recite the sovereignty. Well, belonging to the European Union has a limit to the legislative. First, you cannot legislate in exclusive competencies of the European Union. You cannot, simply you cannot. Even if the European Union has not applied or has not activated their competencies. Okay, you go to the tribunal, and that's in this case, you can go to the court of the European Union to apply for a process that is called failure to act against the Commission. I cannot legislate. You do not legislate, and we need to legislate in this issue. But you cannot legislate. It's only after. So, in shared competencies, you are limited to if the European Union has used them. It is true that parliaments, national parliaments, has now a counter, let's say, weapon on that. That is the principle of subsidiarity. The Commission, in shared competencies, must prove when she proposed a legislative proposal, that the action that he proposed there is better obtained jointly or commonly at this level and not on national level. The principle of subsidiarity means that, in principle, the things must be made and must be decided in the closest level to the citizen. And the closest level to the citizen is the state, region, but anyway, the state, and not European Union. So the Commission must explain that. And so the national parliament now they should do in it of this proposal in shared competencies to make a check of subsidiarity. And if you cannot complain, well, the competence goes to the legislative. Limited to on the things that in shared competences and in some pieces of regulation, you will see now, just now, what can he do or can they not do? Is there regulations? Nothing. We explained after what is a regulation, you know, but anyway, nothing. Is it a directive? Yes. But yes, and see that you can legislate, but not freely. And third, and we have seen now the budget law, we have seen the constraints, in the budget. Finally, to the judiciary. To the judiciary too is influenced. The national courts are influenced and touched by the fact that your country belongs to the European Union. And how this affects? In three ways. First, depending on the type of the law. I will explain European Union law. European Union law is made of primary European Union law and secondary European Union law. Primary European Union law, the treaties, the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union, the Treaty of the European Union, our treaties, European treaties, international convention, international treaties, the fundamental European rights chart is primary, two, and the common principles of law, transparency, equity, etc., etc. That is primary law. And after we have secondary law. Secondary law, there are different pieces, one that are not binding, opinions and recommendations, opinions of the Council, recommendations of an institution, of the European Union, that you can follow, you cannot follow. But three are binding: directives, regulations, and decisions. Regulation is the top of the top of the hierarchy of the regulation is binding in every aspect, in everything, in just a comma, is absolutely binding for every member state, for all member states, and has, very important thing, direct effect, immediate direct effect. What does it mean, direct effect? That when the regulation is published in the Gazeta, in the European Union Gazeta, the 12, I mean, they enter into force immediately. If it doesn't not say that, it's 20 days after the publication. But then you don't need to do nothing, member states. It has direct effect and creates so direct rights to companies, to citizens, whatever. And if the member states do not follow that, they can go, see now, to the European Court of Justice against your own country that has not respect the right that this regulation gives to you. For citizens, for companies. And companies, regardless, European companies, foreign companies, regardless that they're established in the European Union. So, really is so conservative. You can do nothing. The same is about their decisions. It's exactly the same, binding in everything, but decisions are individual. And they are sent to a member state, specific, but not general, but they are binding. You can do nothing, and you must, but it's only designed to one. And directives. The majority of the are directives. Directive means that what is compulsory is binding. Binding is the objective of the directive, and gives you to member states the ways to decide the way how to do it. For instance, we forbid plastic bags in 2000. They are already followed in Europe, but anyway, in 2025, on 13 April 2025. The way you do it, you can choose. But I want plastic bags disappear from the European Union on 13 April 2025. If in 12th of April 2025 you have not done it, you have transposition, we call that, of directives, no? To transfer to law, to national law, the legislative, to law. No? If you are not transport, so you will be to justice, and into the Court of Justice, the European Court of Justice. No? I mean, it is true that some directives are very complicated. They are very easy, others very complicated. So, if there is a bit of flexibility for the member state or the Commission to do to see how it can be implemented correctly. But anyway, the rights created for companies and citizens of the directive, once the deadline has passed, they are applicable, and you can go to the Court of Justice to make a value. In second effect on the judiciary, the principle of primacy. That's essential. That is essential milestone of the European Union legal system. What does it mean, the primacy? That European law has primacy to national law. To all pieces of national, including the Constitution. If your Constitution is not in line with the European law, change the Constitution. It is extremely, just imagine, true for the judiciary. The shock that represents for the judiciary to say that European law is above, even the Constitution. So shocked that it was just some years ago, a bit debatable, that the German Constitutional Court said that in some cases, well, let's see. It has created a top of debate on that, but primacy is essential in order to respect the EU law. And finally, the third element in which it is affected is by the very existence of the European Union Court of Justice. The European Court of Justice has the monopoly of interpretation of European Union law, it's in Luxembourg, the interpretation of to assure that in all member countries the European law is interpreted in the same way, and second, to assure that European law is applied. And they have, for doing that, three main kind of actions that you can go to the European Union. The first is to nullify acts that are not legally, according to European Union, made by the Commission, by the institution, by member states. Even member states against member states against institutions, companies are rights against a member state or institution. Actions to annulment of an act that was not okay and it was in line of the European Union law. The second is, as I said before, actions for failure to act. To shoot the legislator to have not done it. The mainly is for the Commission institution, but sometimes too for the member states. Sorry, you should have transposed this directive and you cannot do it. And I have rights that are frozen because of that. And the third one, and I will do that, this is called the preliminary rulings, that affects directly the judiciary. When a question about European law is essential in a case presented in a national tribunal, and there is no jurisprudence of the European Union as far as how to apply this element in the case study, or you have that the judge had that on how to apply the European Union, you must go firstly to the European Union Court of Justice, and mainly it's obligatory if the tribunal is the last resort in the national, for that is compulsory. For the courts that are final judicial step in national institution, in national judicial system. So, and I will finish with that. So thank you very much for that. It is not so easy, it's very complicated elements, and I have tried to facilitate that with it as easy, as simple as possible to be understood. A mode of conclusion. First, the European Union is an integration process and is unique as integration process because of the transfer of sovereignty. Second, that transfer of sovereignty creates a lot of challenges to member states. That just thinking that the European Union is not a leviathan. It's not a thing that is in Brussels. No, the European Union, we are the European Union. Member states, we are the European Union. I mean, we have decided freely and we are the European Union. It is true that procedures are very long, but at the end of the day, we are the European Union. Third element, that it is true that creates the European Union still has, we have shortcomings, we have shortfalls. It is true. There are limitations with respect to in foreign policy, in internal market, in some things that we must improve. Yes, it is true. It is true. But we are doing, and if you see the European process, we have always, even in the crisis, even a big and deep crisis, we have always been forward. Never backward, always forward as far as making more Europe. More Europe. It was the lemma of our previous president, it was more Europe. So that's it. Even if there is a lot of sacrifices for member states. We think that European Union has been a successful story internally. I mean, the European Union is a motor, is an engine of welfare and wealth. Everybody who enters in the European Union increase the level of life, the GDP, the rights. I think everything is better. And sometimes it is a lot of sacrifices to do. Yes, there is a price to pay. But I mean, it is a positive engine inside, and we think too outside. The European Union is a matter of peace in the world, leading some elements of things that concern us all. For instance, artificial intelligence. Probably we will be the first ones to legislate about this thorny and so complicated issue as in the world, and artificial intelligence. We have been in fostering green economy, in fostering environmental concerns, and so kind of things we have. And finally, and it is my last message, we firmly think that it is better together. Better together. We make the things better, and the effects are so visible. We have seen, even with these shortfalls, that I say yes, and the burden, yes, sometimes you are afraid of the challenges you have, and sometimes you are angry of the result you have had. Me, I have negotiated very yes, and sometimes the result of negotiation can be angry because we are not the one I wanted. But I mean, even all of that have been applied to all member states. Even with that, we have proved that it is better to do together. We have seen the crisis in 2008, how together we saved. The country was a very tough situation, and many other countries too, how together we have seen it. As we are together, for instance, we can mobilize big quantity of money, and we are serious with a very low interest rate if we borrow money, for instance. No? So I mean that's very good. We have witnessed again in the COVID. In the COVID, I mean, tremendous common work have done as far as vaccines are concerned, and for many others, and we have been solidarity as vaccines is concerned, just giving for free millions of vaccines to the rest of the world. But in COVID, and now we are with the Ukrainian war, the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, we have together have had the possibility of just hosting our Ukrainian friends that live this terrible war, but to the economic impact. Which you know that is a war in Europe at the end of the day, and so we're directly connected with the economic consequences of the war. It is true that one of the main challenges we have seen here is the transfer of sovereignty. That is the reason why some country has decided to leave the European Union. So that is a totally national and absolutely acceptable option. But there are 8 member countries that want to. There are 8 countries that want to join. 1 leave, but 8 want to join. Among them, countries so big as Turkey or Ukraine. So that is a symbol of the success of the common world, even if we have a lot still to do. Now I open to all the questions about Middle East, about Ukraine, about China, whatever you want. So thank you very much for your attention.
First, pardon me that I typically don't allow a speaker to speak more than 40 minutes, but I got so excited, I'm sure you'll agree with me. His Excellency spoke for more than an hour. Except that we, as I mentioned earlier, we started off by noting that following my discussion with the Foreign Minister, we'd like to trim and leave that in the AEI website, the speeches of ambassadors, so that we promote, we encourage, follow up. There will be contestations, there will be those who will be excited with His Excellency's speech. The 40 minutes is the ideal time, so that will be edited in a way. And of course, we would like to also, from the next few lectures, hopefully have live streaming so that you can hear, for example, we invite His Excellency, he can speak for 2 hours. I know who to invite to give a 2-hour lecture now. Thank you. But anyway, I thought I should split it with some sort of humor, but again, taking from reality, Aspana, I believe the pronunciation of Spain in Spanish. The reason why I'm saying, you talk about complexity. We, using my own language, we call different countries differently. Would you believe that we call Netherlands as Belanda? Of course, Germany is easy to make out, German. Spain is Espanol. French is for France. So we do have our own names for the different countries. Likewise, I suppose it's interesting that ASEAN has tried to do what the EU has done, but so far hasn't really managed to go any distance. We don't, for example, have a have common jurisprudence. You were talking about those things and the supreme position of the European Parliament, whether the discussion took place in Strasbourg or for that matter Brussels or Luxembourg, the three places they are located. I think these are all important things, but if you make a contrast, and I think one of the things I got excited with is everybody seems to think that the European Monetary Union and the EU, the only difference being in the European Monetary Union you have a common monetary policy, while each different country has a fiscal policy. The unfortunate thing people tend not to know is in order to maintain the same exchange rate, the euro, and interest rates, you have a central bank that also ensures that, as what His Excellency mentioned, you can't, for example, have public debt beyond 8% or something of GDP. So there are those constraints which might also explain, among other things, why some countries got exposed. For that matter, Greece, for example. So these are things I thought was exciting. The difference being in the US, it's also the United States of America, you have one monetary policy and we have common, fiscal, one monetary policy, but fiscal policy is by the state, but that's much more different in the way it's handled. Just imagine you have a huge number of people migrating from say, the Netherlands to Germany, or for that matter from, even more clear, Romania to Denmark. It will tend, even though the rules, the European Parliament rules, doesn't allow any ethnic form or segregation, it's likely that it will generate other things, which is the basis of Margaret Thatcher's argument that we can't possibly have a central Europe, and that will deny autonomy that Britain will require, which has been the stand, not just Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, but the entire group of conservative people, except for maybe Cameron, who preferred to remain within Europe. But interestingly, he followed a lecture that we had 3 weeks ago by Alan Barron. For some reason, he quoted some evidence from papers, including Luigi Moretti, on the counterfactual, if you have or you don't have the European Union. He tends to make the point that Britain would be the only one that would have lost without. Every country has actually gained, but it would have lost because it is left. With Brexit, it has left because of the 60% perhaps market, which His Excellency mentioned. Now, without taking much shine from his work, please, I open this to your discussion. We should do justice to such an exciting speech, especially so when we are addressing, not just throwing flowers at the European Union. Yes, please, use the mic.
Buenas tardes, Su Excelencia, señor Pardo CUERDO. Me llamo Kai, soy uno estudiante de la Facultad Lingüística.
Do you have a translator? Otherwise, no one knows what.
I was just introducing myself. I will propose the questions in English. La Facultad Lingüística y Lenguas de la Universidad Malaya. Muy espléndido. Usted lectura, además tengo dos preguntas para usted, and then I will propose the questions in English. So you have introduced us a very comprehensive description on the interactions between the European Union and Spain as EU members within. So my question is that how would you, as an ambassador, how would you mediate the possible contrasts between the guidelines from Brussels, from the European Commission, and the how to say the expected engagement outcomes from Madrid, from Spain. How would you mitigate this possible contrast in terms of the bilateral interactions between Spain and Malaysia as two independent sovereignty nations? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Very good questions. Yes, on foreign policy, I said, well, there is foreign policy and foreign action of the European Union. Foreign policy is hard, traditional foreign policy, and action is, for instance, environmental competencies inside that have an external, so to say, dimension. So our role, and I think our duty is when we are abroad, and we receive or we see conclusions or recommendations or guidelines or even regulations or even directives that can be applied in the country we are posted or whatever, to transfer or to Brussels the feeling in the country we are about that. And so how to better proceed in European Union objectives that are, I repeat, European objectives are member state objectives too, in order to better, how to put better feet on suite the needs, situation and interest of the country that we are. So that is our duty, and we do. And we do, not only me or my colleagues of EU member states here in Malaysia and in other countries. Sometimes we pass messages to Brussels in form of common reports or common opinions, or how do we see the things on the ground. Because, well, in Brussels it is far from Brussels as a concept, I would say, no? And that, and the delegations of the European Union, of course, not only here, that push us to do that, and we coordinate to do that. I don't know if I've explained more or less your question.
I'm Christian Barbulescu, undergraduate of economics at UM. Tu Excellency, Rajah, muchas gracias por venir hoy. Terima kasih Dato Dr. Rajah untuk menjemput besar Spanyol ke Universiti kita. Your Excellency, thank you very much for coming to UM. I'm very happy that students like myself have access to opportunities like today to learn more about the European Union. Now my question is, what are 3 reasons that Malaysian students should study in Europe? Thank you very much.
I think there are many more than 3 reasons. You said. Yes. Well, I think first the quality of the education. Malaysia has extremely high quality. And so there are so many universities. We are in one of the more prestigious in the country. University Malaya, we have public and private. The university here has a very high level of education and instruction. In Europe, we have 2 in the universities, public and private, etc. Second, and I think it could be the same that reasons from European students to study in Malaysia. Open horizons, open minds to different realities, and that is extremely enriching mainly for a young that are still building his or her own personality, to see another ways of thinking, another way of seeing the world. It is why I'm here. I have been posted in all over the world with the sake of Asia. I wanted to come to Asia to precisely know that. How things are here, how Asian thinking, these kind of things, on top of. And third, I think that without, all parts of the world are wonderful, but we Europeans, we are very proud of our culture. We are very proud of so diverse. We are a very small continent, so small continent that we have never had natural resources, and so the only natural resource we have was mind. And so with mind, apply to art, apply to technique, apply to technology, apply to everything, but only mind. So, and we are very proud of our culture, and so the diversity of the cultures we have is such a small place. And on top of that, as you will have a student's permit or a visa or a Schengen visa, you can travel freely for every country of Europe. Thank you.
I'd just like to mention this, that when I first came to AEI, I used to see European students doing masters, quite a few, but those numbers have fallen. So it's our hope that the ambassadors will speak out the way His Excellency Jose Luis Pardo just noted. The standard of education is high. So let's have a two-way flow of students. We should have more European students here. So I just hope this is taken seriously. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Sorry. Let's go first. No, there are quite a few here. After that, you get that guy first. Sorry that I called name that group. Can someone take a line of people so that there's a sequence so we don't deny an earlier set of questions. Yeah, we give equal rights to everyone, including myself, if I have a question. Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor Rajah and Your Excellency for your speech. I think the biggest takeaway that I took from you is that in the spirit of togetherness, the EU decides together for the benefit of Europe. My questions, with permission, I have a couple which are pretty much interrelated. Are more related to foreign policy and extra-regional relations. I'm a postgraduate student from Universiti Malaya, and the first question is, does EU have a unified policy towards other regions, especially Indo-Pacific, that is the subject of intense great power competition? And secondly, perhaps member states in the EU, when it comes to foreign policies, are more aligned with Brussels, understandably. But does Spain, for instance, have aspiration for strategic autonomy to decide foreign policies more assertively and more freely, independently, beyond commercial interest, especially the global south and the Indo-Pacific? Thank you.
Very good question. The first is easy to say yes, we have. So Asia is a priority, a strategic priority for the European Union, and we have the strategy, Indo-Pacific strategy of the European Union for the whole region, and we privilege ASEAN as a counter-European Union, privilege ASEAN as interlocutor. As a matter of fact, last year we celebrated commemorative 25th anniversary of the European Union and ASEAN treaties and so on. And because we think that each regional process has its own rhythms, decisions, and so on. But we think that European Union process of integration can have some good examples of for others if they want to follow. And we see it is true that the different situations and different realities. In European Union, we all share the same, for instance, as far as human rights, democracy, rule of law, etc. Right? We all share that. In Asian countries, it's not, fortunately, the case now, and so it is a bit of we have some crisis in some countries. I mean, but yes, the answer is very easy. Yes, we have the strategy in the Pacific. It is broader than is Asia and ASEAN privileged region. Even all of us, we are present as embassies in the region, and we want to have even bilateral agreements with ASEAN, institutionally speaking. So yes, and second, as far as was this strategic independence or whatever was the European Union foreign policy, I'm speaking in general terms, was an idea of High Representative Borrell. So we take this strategic, I mean, independence is not strategic autonomy. That is to say, European Union is a global player. I mean, we are present all over the world, and we have very clear ideas of the principles that we must foster, and peace, and don't repeat that what I said before. So, just to think autonomously, I mean, and to see our interests, and to it is true that the interest of the European Union is not only sometimes the sum, the addition of the interest of each member state. I mean, it's something that yes, it sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy because foreign policy has said that there are a lot of implications for national foreign policies, but still is not unified. I mean, so there are a lot of negotiations and bargaining inside the council, in the Council of Foreign Affairs. So, but we are in this line. What it must be, what all member states, we are very disciplined with the things that we pass together. We have a common position or a guidelines or recommendation, whatever, on the relations of the European Union with each seat. We try to follow. In the negotiation process, we try to transfer that things that you feel uncomfortable. Because in foreign policy, you must feel comfortable. In every aspect of time, right? No? But you must feel comfortable. Mainly for the countries, like it's my country, for instance. We were a country, we have 400 years of history. We have foreign policy since so much. The first permanent embassy in the world was the Embassy of Spain in the Holy See, in Rome at the time. So, I mean, we have, there are small countries and new countries that have not nationalists to say foreign policy. No? So, but there are many countries in the European Union that had foreign policy before the European Union, and so in some cases, well, it is the question is just to feel comfortable to connect things in order to feel represented by the common guidelines. Thank you.
Yeah, Silakan.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening to His Excellency Ambassador and the distinguished moderator. I am from Universiti Malaysia Sabah. My PhD thesis deals on the relationship and interaction between state actors and non-state actors, specifically in the realm of international humanitarianism. So I have two questions in this regard. Number one is, how do you describe the conduct and the institutionalization of sovereign humanitarianism and humanitarian diplomacy in the context of both your country, Spain, and also your regional organization, EU? My second question, how do you describe the working relationship and the partnership between state actors and non-state actors, specifically international humanitarian bodies like Doctors Without Borders, International Red Crescent Society, and so on? How do you describe the partnership, the working relationship, and the institutionalization of the framework between these actors within EU and also in the context of your own country? Thank you, sir.
Yes, so here is the answer is very easy too. One of the I didn't say the complexity, for instance. I repeat it only for state actors. But in the decision-making process in Brussels and in the capitals, they have a very direct role, NGOs, non-state actors, etc., etc. In some cases, it's institutionalized. For instance, it's not an institution, but it's a body of the European Union, the Council of Regions, for instance. Well, regions are represented in the Council of Regions, and it's institutionalized. And they make opinions, recommendations, whatever, guidelines for the Council, to the Parliament, to the Council, to the Commission, in order to the interest to be taken into account, mainly in all aspects, but mainly regional policies, for instance. With a lot of money, regional policies are developing now, so with the priorities are. As far as NGOs are concerned, believe me, it's continuous contact with civil society and with NGOs. In Madrid, in my postings, so that continuously just receiving in a humanitarian aspect, in development and humanitarian mainly. continuously. I mean, receiving them, hearing from them. They are very well organized in Europe. They are very well organized. They are networks, and they present papers that have strength. I mean, and have weight into the institutions, to the council, to the. I mean, as you have mentioned of them, Médicos Sin Fronteras, Doctors Without Frontiers, but many others in humanitarian, and mainly in general terms. But as far as a specific dialogue is concerned, in the OCHA, there is a European Humanitarian Agency, as you know. This continuously, I mean, it is a normal, they speak much more with them than with us member states, much more. I mean, with NGOs, etc., non-state actors. On the ground, the same. On the ground, the same. I have posted in many embassies, and we receive commonly or individually NGOs that wanted to pass messages on the European. Absolutely. So I think it's very soft. It works very well. It's very fluid, and they're one of the best lobbies in Brussels, mainly. And all around, if they see that it is not effective in the Commission, they go to the Council. If they're not effective in the Council, they go to the Parliament. I mean, in order to, I'm saying that it's very good to that. One of the most efficient lobbies in the legislative process, making process in the EU, is non-state actors and NGOs in general. I mean.
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is First Admiral Dr. Tay from Royal Malaysian Navy. I have two questions, sir. First of all, can you share with us what is the similarity or differences between the EU and ASEAN setup? Secondly, UK have exited from EU.
What is the similarity?
UK have exited from EU, and what is the impact to the EU member, especially Spain, in terms of economy, social, and defense? Thank you, sir.
I cannot. I explain what the European Union is, and Malaysia has been a member state of ASEAN. Know how do they work. I think I repeat the two elements that make a difference: the 4 freedoms and the transfer of sovereignty. That makes a difference, big difference. I mean, in ASEAN there is not a single market. In ASEAN you don't have Schengen, for instance. In ASEAN you have not custom union. I think still and I think being one of the, is evident, if not the most dynamic, one of the most dynamic areas in the world. Things are happening here. I mean, so, and there are a lot of chances to improve. I think that, in that I quote Prime Minister Anwar in one of his speeches, was speaking about ASEAN, in the ASEAN last summit, ASEAN summit, to pass from competition to cooperation. That's what we have made it in the European Union. We have, in the history, we just passed from war to peace. We are having wars, all of us, continuously, and we exported some of them, the 2 world wars, for instance, continuously, and we changed, changing war to peace, and we changed competition to cooperation. Doesn't mean that there is no competition, for instance, of course, our companies compete, of course, but cooperate too, for instance. I mean, of course, there is a difference of development. There is sometimes we became a bit selfish. Sometimes yes, why not? But in general terms, there are more cooperation to that competition. Institutional is different. I said there is a European law. There is not an ASEAN law that you can. European Union creates, as I said, rights directly to people. For me, for companies, etc. And that is, for instance, the flags. It's not aesthetic. That is, oh, it's nice to have a block. No, it's compulsory. We put both flags because we are Europeans and Spaniards, Europeans and Romanians and Europeans and Belgians. It's not a part of decoration. It's compulsory to put it. For instance, not only that, in public buildings all over. You are used to do that. The cars you have been to Europe. Is it the same car? We must put the flag of the European Union with the name of your country, SP or FA, but it's the same. So, this kind of things create some kind of, we are different, of course we are different in diversity. Right, you need united in diversity, and we are very proud of our diversity. That Loponi in Finland has nothing to do with Andalusian or Lisbon from Bucharest over. We have a lot of common. It's true. The culture. But our diversity is a source of richness. On top, the things we have, or the law we have, and I say to you, is binding. It's not only okay. You can do it. You will do it. Guidelines. No. It's compulsory. For instance, the Court of Justice has obliged us member states many things as far as rights of citizens, rights of third nationals, question of family reunification, just to mention other things. Of course, a company can go to, and the member state is fine. So I think there are I think many differences, but not only with ASEAN, with many others, because the difference is that what I wanted to retain in mind, these elements of the 4 freedoms. The transfer of sovereignty. I don't know if I have more or less. It is true that we must do things. In the case of ASEAN, in defense, for instance, yes, it's true. We have not a single defense policy. It's true. It retains still very much all the states. It is true that in our case, NATO belonging of the majority of member states, though, so that sometimes to differentiate. Sometimes when you have autonomy, that was another question. That both headquarters are in Brussels. Anyway, that there are things that we must keep on. That it is a clear, even with ups and downs, there are a clear. As another element that this full plenty of movement. Has created a European, mainly in the youth. First, Erasmus has created in the youth people a tremendous support for European identity. Erasmus is a university exchange between the students of students. 20 years ago, we created something like a long time ago. So that has created a very much European, identity for good or whatever. I don't know, but it's because we have many virtues in Europe, and we have some very few anyway. Defects. I'm joking. No, it's the difference. And still the way to go. For instance, security is true. Security and defense and so on is a thing that we must take seriously in the future. But always, as I said, even in the graduate career, always forward, never backwards. Thank you.
Let me just note that we can't possibly allow this to go on beyond 4:15 because we have to be kind to those who have to drive back. The University of Malaysia's roads get clogged up after that. But let me also mention, at least before I pass the question to one other person, that we are looking at constructs that are seen differently. In ASEAN, for example, they call now ASEAN Economic Community because they think we have a single market, which is different from the case of what we have in Europe. Now that sort of differences need to be addressed. Let's accept that the EU was formed, among other reasons, not just for economic reasons, to prevent wars, for example. The Treaty of Westphalia, 1648, to me, started the nation state. And this is, even though the aftermath of the Habsburg War, 30 Years' War, the Dutch had already declared independence by 1609. It's like Indonesia declaring independence from the Netherlands in say 1945. Now I think the same thing happened to many others, but formally, the Treaty of Westphalia was important, 1648. And then subsequently the pursuit to see that there are no longer wars, but we have the Russia-Ukraine war though. But anyway, I just wanted to make the point that many Malaysians think, even though we don't have free access to the Schengen country, that you can just drive around. I was driving around when I was working 4 years in the Netherlands without anybody stopping me. But that's not the same case here. Yes, please. Your question. That would be the last question. I hope you all don't mind.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, hola, mucho gusto. Soy Teresia. So since yesterday, I just interviewed several refugees with Malaysian NGOs. So my question is, what did the EU do about solving the refugee problems and what's going on there?
The refugee challenge, I will limit myself of our European experience and situation because it's different on other sides of the world. Here, for instance, maybe Chinese Rohingyas and all that. But let me explain what happened in Europe. Of course, I mean, we are different from ASEAN, for instance, another different from ASEAN. In all member states, we have ratified the Geneva Conventions, the 57 Geneva Convention and the New York 7 about refugees. So we are abide by an international law that in our law systems has precedence to national law. So that's the difference. So in Europe, it is assured the rights of refugees, and we are in that very human rights oriented as far as refugees are concerned. We have a challenge lately. A country that two differences, small difference anyway, the difference among member states, etc. In my case, we are very pro, as far as Spain is concerned. We are very guarantee systems, very pro refugees. We have the third, as a matter of fact, the third member state with more refugee applications in the European Union after Germany, and very close to France. The origin of applicants is different. We have from Latin America, for instance, that from Afghanistan or Syria or whatever, from Sub-Saharan Africa is different situation. But one thing is in common. That is that there is an abuse of refugee proceedings. If you see the amounts of refugee applications now, it is the highest in the history of mankind. And so the challenge to UNHCR is tremendous. In my days in Spain on that, we work very closely with UNHCR, IONA. That there is, and we must recognize that, even Gandhi said that too. I mean, it's not only me, has heard the Commission for Refugees, that we are witnessing in some parts of the world, I'm not saying here, some parts of Europe certainly, an abuse of the system of refugee. What that means? That the system has been so guarantist, and my country, the first one of them, that you apply for asylum without having the situation to apply that. I mean, I say quite frankly to you, probably I will do the same. It's in human nature. Probably I will do the same. Imagine, because the challenge, I repeat, is different for yours. Which is our challenge? Our challenge is irregular migration. Irregular displacement too. And so, you attain, so to say, standard border. We are standard borders. We have an extra challenge. Italy, Greece, I mean, we are extended borders. To arrive to as irregular, and you have the tendency to apply for asylum. It is, you are not fleeing your country because of the reasons of refugee. I mean, it is true that there are a lot of mixed flows. It is true. It is true. You are not escaping because your life is in danger, or because you simply do not come back to your home. You are fleeing for other very unfair situations. It is true that the responsibility of us all, imbalances of the distribution of wealth, fleeing poverty, and tough conditions. True, and we are common responsible of us on that, and we must fight that. That they are not the reasons to refugee, and so apply for refugee. To that, as we have are obliged, not only by the convention, the General Convention, the 2 European conventions, we are obliged to proceed. The procedure is extremely long because it's difficult first to identify even the nationality of the person who applied, because they have no papers, they have no passport, they have no IDN, they have nothing. So first identify which nationality he had. Why? Because that is an element. So you are a Spaniard. So sorry, but I don't give you asylum. So I reject immediately. Why? Because there is no reason in Spain to leave your country because of the reason of asylum. So that's important to know which country you come from. In order to so the proceedings are very long, and sometimes just after, because are lengthy. It could have 1 year. To this 1 year, the state must provide you everything. We are obliged, and we are great in Spain to do that. Lodging, education, of course, security, of course, until the procedure is closed and decided, yes or not. In Europe, the number of refuge applications do not get down, increase. Roughly more than 1,200,000 per year. Doesn't decrease. And we see too that the percentage of accept has decreased too dramatically. So that means with the same rules and with the same aim to protect, we want to protect all the persons that need protection. This is a European principle, of course. That you see the percentages in all of our countries and globally the European, the percentage of acceptance of refugee status has increased dramatically. So that means that it is some kind of abuse, for passing the parallel for, let's say, irregular migration to applications to refugees. That we think that is not good, because it touches the persons who really needs protection, And so it's a challenge. It's a challenge that it is true that sometimes we are speaking with NGOs, etc., continuous. Well, UNHCR is not an NGO, but Red Cross, yes, and other. I mean, we have very close contacts on the ground, working with these agencies. There are challenges to that. We try to improve. There are always tragic stories. It is true, because leaving your country, even for migration, forced migration. I mean, you want to go to study or to work, but perfect. But forced migration, because if it's not security, because of economic reasons or whatever. Everybody of us, we are all human beings. We wanted to live where we have born, where are our friends, our families. I mean, and we decided to go to another country not voluntarily is against our will. So we are human beings, and we must understand that perfectly. That the states must manage. States must manage migration, must manage refugees, etc. And so it is a challenge that we must. Now we are speaking in the European Union and in the Council, the consensus on the new European migration and refugee pact, and so let's see how yes, they are different. Yes, in that, yes, they are different positions by the countries. In the position of Spain, we are very, very guarantist. We are very pro. There are different positions within the but we are very pro refugees and very pro migrants. That we acknowledge that migration must be managed. That we cannot compare regular migration and irregular migration. No, and that the refugee abuse must be in some way tackled. I will answer to our experience.
Thank you, Excellency. Like all good things, we have to talk them at some point in time. I'm sure there are still many others with pressing questions. Don't forget, this lecture will be in the AEI website. You can surely have your discussion there. In fact, I encourage you all to do that very much. Now, in the usual way, it's not just the Malaysian way, we should always appreciate an incisive lecture, like the kind that His Excellency Jose Luis Pardo Cuerdo presented. So let's give him a big hand.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the eye-opening lecture and Professor Rajah for moderating the session.